All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to another sales success webinar. As always, my name is Alex. I am here with better hair this time. We are going to be talking to you a lot about really what it comes down to supporting your borrower. But as always, we have our team. So we have Lando Petri here on the screen as well as Mike Orlando, who has his name proper on the screen now. And we have Scott Karch, who is tuning in here. He's been doing a lot of traveling, talking people, shaking hands, all that fun stuff. So, gentlemen, how we doing today? How we feeling?
Good, good. Doing good, man.
I like it. I like it. Welcome, Scott. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. So, what we're going to be talking about today, number one, is our new feature that went live this week, and I wanted to focus on it a bit more. We talked about it on our last webinar, but really just kind of wanted to highlight it. That's our new SMS notification system. So, really, what this boils down to is you get text messages as the borrower is going through, right? To keep it simple. But what this really comes up for is just tracking your borrower's pipeline. And this is actually really good timing because we've been doing a lot of calls with partners the last couple weeks where we're doing really kind of high level leadership calls, really, when it comes to statistics on drop off. When it says, like, hey, our borrowers are hitting this point in the application and then they're just stopping. Why is that sales success? Well, I want to tell you why that is. I want to talk to you about certain areas where the borrower may get stuck. They may just stop, areas where you may see slowdown. I want to talk about certain states like Texas, right, where there may be a bit more to it. So we're going to look at the borrower flow. We're going to kind of jump around a little bit. We're going to talk about this new feature, as well as really just talking about ways that you can support your borrowers and, just kind of be like a SME for the product to really just say, hey, I'm going to help you through it. I'm going to be there for you every step of the way. And really ways that you can use this new SMS notification system to track the pipeline. But realistically, it's saying, hey, I haven't received a notification from my borrower in, let's say, 3 days. Let me see what's going on. Let me track here what's happening with my borrower and kind of dive into the files themselves. So, without further ado, as always, I got to do a little bit of housekeeping. The very first thing is this session's being recorded. And as always, I'm going to put the recording up on YouTube. So, with that, I'm going to be sending an email out to all registrants. That email is going to have number one, our YouTube link. So, don't worry, subscribe to never miss, a video, as well as that actual email is going to have a bunch of information on there. It's going to come from our actual inbox. So if you ever want to send us anything, and we're going to have a lot more links and information on there as well. So if you're interested, you want to reach out, you want to become a partner figure, if you're brand new, I'm going to have all that information on that email. And for this session, if you have any questions at all, as always, we're going to do Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, please post them down there in the Q&A box. Our team's going to be monitoring that. And if we do have any good, questions, we're going to be going through everything, answering all your questions about anything we cover or anything else, right? If anything comes up, this is really everyone's time, right? So feel free, post your questions in there and we'll get to them in a bit. But with saying that all, thank you all joining. Just giving a little bit of time for people to jump on in. Let's dive into our subject, right? So that is going to be this new feature. So that is going to be taking a look here at Lead Portal. So with Lead Portal itself, right, with this new feature, this is going to be built into your profile. So now that this is live, if you go into Lead Portal in your profile, you're going to see a new tab. That tab is for notifications, and this is more like a, let's call it a phase one rollout, right? So with this live, you are going to have the ability to come in here and quite simply, you're going to need to enable SMS notifications. So keep in mind, this is turned off by default. So this is always going to be off, for new users. Now that we have this live, it doesn't mean you're automatically going to start receiving text notifications. But what you can do, you come in here, you're going to be able to go in and toggle this on. But more importantly to me, you can change that phone number, right? Because the phone number in your profile, the one, let's say, put in here, that's what's going to show up for your borrower on each page of the application. So you can have like a front center, hey, this is my contact phone number, this is my work phone number, whatever that may be. If you're someone with a workflow or maybe you have different phone numbers, depending on, how you work, maybe you have a group phone number with your LOA, whatever that may be, this is where you can go in and change. In this mobile phone number, that's where you're going to get those notifications. You don't have to change it, obviously. You can just say, yep, I want to go ahead and enable this, and that'll send it to that default, whatever that contact phone number is, if you have it in there. Otherwise, you can change that to whatever it may be. Now, I want to talk about this a little bit on the actual functionality, what you're actually going to be receiving, right? And if you used our product before, you're probably going to be familiar with it. This is the same thing you would receive through email. So what that means is you're going to receive notifications as your borrower's going through certain milestones. So as they start the application, once they get to offer select, once they get to income verification, right? As they verified income, as they're moving on, selecting their final offer, so on and so forth. So it's going to alert you the progression of the file. However, what it's not doing is it's not going to be alerting you of where they stall. It's not going to say, hey, your borrower hasn't done anything in a couple days. We do send nurture notifications to your borrower. We'll say, hey, log into your online account, right? You still have to progress. You still have something to do. That's what we send to the borrower. But for you, quite simply, we're telling you how they're progressing, what steps they've got to. But let's say a borrower gets to offer select. We'll send you a text message about it. But let's say they sit there for 5 days. Well, we're not going to send you anything else because they haven't progressed. So that's really where I think the workflow comes in to where you may want to be checking through your messages. You may want to think, hey, my borrower hasn't gone through in a couple days. Maybe I'll give them a call, see if they have questions, see what's going on. Because for a lot of these scenarios, a lot of the pages, most of the pages, in fact, the borrower can do literally in 30 seconds, right? If they're engaged, if they want to get through this, it's not that hard. But that is where maybe they're thinking it over, or maybe other things happen. And that's really what this session's going to be about. So, not to get ahead of myself, I'll talk about that stuff later. That's where you enable these text message alerts. And that's where you really want to go, okay, Carlos hasn't gone through, in, let's say 3 days. I'm going to text him or I'm going to give him a call and I'm going to say, hey, it looks like I haven't received a notification. It looks like you're still here. But that's where you can also go into your pipeline, right? That's where you can come into that pipeline and you can take a look to see what's going on. I'm in a fun little test environment, right? So everything's going to be expired. But the point really here is track what's going on, track where your borrowers are at, but also track where they haven't been, track where they're not progressing. Because I see this time and time again where a 20-minute application on average takes 9 days, takes a week or two because it's borrower driven. And a lot of the times the borrower's thinking it over or they get stuck somewhere. And again, I'll talk more about all of this later, but really it's making it into your workflow to monitor your pipeline and monitor where your borrowers are at. Because while we do provide customer service, a lot of the nurture is automated emails or automated alerts to your borrower. And if they just don't simply want to proceed, or, if they're not seeing this, they may just sit around. Gentlemen, any thoughts at all on any of this?
I mean, I think it's pretty much business as usual. Most every lender has an online application. That online application is going to be a customer-facing portal where they're uploading documents, clearing tasks, going through required items, providing us what they need. Those things are sending you mobile alerts as to where your loan is in process anyway, right? We're just simply allowing you to have an idea of what's happening with your file on the go, right? On the movement. I know you're not tied to your desk. You're not at your computer all day. You're not. You're out there having conversations, going to closings, making relationships. It's simply a way to be notified wherever you're at any time. So then you can prioritize your responses accordingly, which helps you stay better organized. So I think it's going to be very similar to something you probably already use on a day-to-day basis in all your other applications.
Yeah, and what's kind of interesting too, right, is when Figure started 8, 9 years ago, something like that. It was a complete direct consumer channel, right? And most of our business or all of our business at the time didn't come through our partners like it does now. Or now, like the vast majority has been flipped around, where most of our business is now coming from people like you. So we've been kind of catching up a little bit and enhancing the system so that, it's a little bit more loan officer friendly and not just completely tied to what the borrower is doing. So we've been working the last like year, I'd say, Alex, about making those enhancements to make it a little more transparent for the loan officer, giving those updates so they can kind of see a little bit more clearly, certainly than they were when I started about a year ago. I think we made a lot of strides there. So it is another tool, like Lando said, just to stay abreast about what's going on with your applications, and you can plan accordingly.
Now, I am seeing some stuff in the Q&A, and I want to be clear about this. For SMS notifications, that is controlled by each organization and their leadership. So we're turning this on for Figure Wholesale, right? So the brokers, they'll have that ability. For our private label partners, right? Those white label partners through our correspondent channel, they get to decide whether or not they have that feature. And so a few of our partners have more or less decided not to enable that, or they're going through a testing phase right now because they want to do testing on their end, go through compliance, right? Approve this new feature. So our account managers are working through your leadership to also get this enabled through quite a few partners. So if you do not see this currently right now, just keep in mind for a lot of you, it's going to go live soon. We just have to kind of do that testing with that leadership. Let us know. You can always reach out salessuccess@figure.com. We can kind of give you some more information on what's going on there on a per partner basis. But just keep in mind for a lot of you, I kind of expected this as well in the webinar. If you don't see it right away, that could not necessarily be a bad thing. It could just be a little bit of a lag time based on, some compliance aspects. Across the board, though, this is something that is, getting live and put up literally this week. So Figure Wholesale, I believe it went live like yesterday, and we're turning this on across the board. So nice new feature in there. And we talked about this on the last webinar. This is completely side topic. I'm getting way off track. But a lot of those new features that you're seeing, I'm literally in some channels right now where we're talking about this going soon. So things like ID pre-upload is going to be coming live very, very soon, as well as we're still working on that multi-lien payoff. So expect really big stuff coming in the works. Our teams are literally working every single day. We're hammering in on our computers like 10 hours a day at this point. So just again, if you don't see it, I'll send out comms, I'll send out that email, but you can always reach us salessuccess@figure.com and we can just kind of give you a bit more clarity. But I expect quite a few of you through that kind of correspondent channel. Probably just need to wait a little bit through, some of that leadership, or some of the partners just decided not to turn it on. That's fine. It just depends on, your organization structure. You'll still receive emails. All righty. Here's what I really want to talk about today, folks, is again, I've done quite a few calls, and really our whole team has at this point the last couple weeks, with top leadership across our partners, really doing a digest of their pipeline. And really what it comes down to is the leadership's coming to us saying, hey, there are certain points in the application flow where we're seeing a very high amount of drop off compared to other points. And quite simply, it's not saying that these points, are problematic. It's really just saying how can we increase turnover in these sections? Because some points of the application, the borrower can again do in like 30 seconds. But other points, that's where there's going to see that drop off, where things happen. So what I want to do is I want to focus on the borrower flow, but I want to focus on very key points where you really want to focus on monitoring pipeline and making sure your borrowers are going through to really make this more of a seamless process, but also making sure if your borrower does get stuck somewhere, you can help them out with it. So let me go ahead. I want to share my screen here. Here we go. So we're going to start here with an application. And this is through Figure Wholesale, right? If you're a correspondent private label partner, of course, it's going to be branded for your organization. But this is where the borrower starts. They're going to have their offer screen, right? If you did an inquiry, it's going to match your offer. It's nice and simple. There's going to be a contact card on the right-hand side. This is where they're going to see your information, and they'll have that chat button. And of course, there will be a phone number at the top, depending on the partnership type. But this is where a borrower can look over their offers. And if you've done that inquiry, you've had a conversation with them, you've probably pre-select this, you've probably had a whole talk. But realistically here, a borrower should go through this maybe in a couple minutes, right? Now, with this, number one, soft credit is good for 14 days. We're not going to rush them through it, right? This is a big financial decision. They can think it over. But what happens here, right? And actually, quick sidebar, I did see a question in the Q&A. This is where you'll be able to see all the fees broken down, and you can see that in the inquiry. So just so you're aware, they're going to see everything up front here. It's a full term breakdown. But what we see, to my point, we don't see fall off necessarily on offer select. We actually see it on the next page. So I've had quite a few partners coming to me saying, Alex, What happens here? What happens here that leads to borrowers not completing the application? And I'm going to tell you exactly why. On this page, they have only three things they have to select. And someone doing this literally could take 30 seconds. So why do we see such high drop off here? Well, quite simply, this is where they put in their social. And this is where they give permission for a hard credit pull. Now, we're not going to pull hard credit here. We're going to do that later after income verification when they select their disbursement account. But what happens is the borrower looks over their offers. Maybe they want to think it over. Maybe they're kind of sitting there for a bit, but they select their offer, right? And then this to me is where it gets serious. This to me is where a borrower looks at it and goes, okay, well, now I'm putting in my social. Now I'm agreeing to a hard credit pull. Some borrowers misconstrue that, thinking they're going to have their hard credit pulled here if they hit agree. Sometimes it's quite simply the act of putting in their full social that makes it a bit, cautious to them. But that's where they select their offer and then they think, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to think it over. I'm going to maybe talk to my spouse, or maybe I'm going to shop around, right? Maybe I'm going to look around, do some rate shopping, or think about other options. So we see a lot of drop off across all partners, right? Statistically against other points of the application. And really, to me, it's because this is the point where they're going to go, I need to make sure this is what I want to do to proceed. And again, someone could do this app in 15 and 20 minutes. It's really quick, but this is where I'd monitor it because you're going to receive a notification that says, hey, borrower selected their offer. And you'll receive that via email or SMS notification if you sign up. But to me, it's okay if they're sitting on that hard credit consent section, and you'll see that in the details of lead portal. If you're seeing them on here more than a day, maybe a couple days, right? Give them a call up because this is literally they put in their social marital status, financial purpose. It's still soft credit. It's still a really quick point. I'd even say go as far as if you're talking to them ahead of time, you're doing that inquiry, set the expectation of, all right, you're going to start the application. You're going to select that pre-qualified offer. I have it set up the way we discussed, but just know after you select your pre-qualified offer, it will then ask for your social. You're going to agree to a hard credit pull, but just know it's not going to pull your hard credit right there. It'll pull your hard credit after you verify your income, right? Setting the expectation so that they're going through knowing when certain things happen. But also, again, when they hit this point and there's drop off, there's things of that, you're following up, seeing if they have questions, right? Just making sure that they are progressing. Otherwise, maybe they're shopping around or simply maybe they get cold feet. Gentlemen, any thoughts on anything I'm saying here?
I mean, Alex, this is pretty simple. Just explain to your client that they're going to have their credit pulled. It's a mortgage transaction. Every single one of them requires a credit report. You're doing it upfront as part of your pre-qualification. It's going to be a hard pull in order to get into underwriting to have your loan approved. See what you truly qualify for. Just tell them, hey, when you go through, you're going to verify your information. They are going to get your consent for a hard credit pull to make sure that everything checks up to have you approved. Right? This is business as usual.
Now, once they go ahead and select all this, right? They hit I agree. They're going to go through the HMDA questions, right? And then they're going to go ahead and submit their application here of information. And then once they go ahead and do that, then they're going to get to income verification. And we've done 1,000 webinars on this. We've talked on this topic a lot. But here in particular, right, this is where we also see a lot of fall off. This to me is probably where they're going to get stuck the most, where they're going to have questions. I really want to stress the fact that we have full customer service. Or if the borrower does have questions, I always recommend chat. They can talk to a real person in minutes. And on top of that, again, there's going to be a phone number listed on the app for them so they can call in. But really, again, it's setting the expectation ahead of time, talking to them about how they get that income. And then I've said this before on other webinars, but making sure that their bank account has third-party access enabled as a setting. I was actually helping one of our leadership today about that because we had a client, they were linking up business bank accounts, some other bank accounts, and it was not verifying. It looked like it was connecting, but it really wasn't. And then we had them go in, and it looks like that setting was turned off, right? It wasn't allowing Plaid to connect. They turned it on, then they verified and moved on, right? So sometimes it's things like that that you may want to help them with or give advice. and then they can move through. Maybe it's other things like understanding this. So we do have a lot of documents and demo videos in the resource center if you want to learn more, but it's really setting that stage so they have everything ready before they even start the application so they can go through this quickly. So just keep in mind, right, we can answer tons of questions if you all have them, put them in the Q&A. But where we also see a lot of fall off is also here at disbursement. And I think really the biggest thing when it comes down to it is just making sure, again, setting the right expectations of having the accounts ready. They can put in an account routing number. A lot of people don't know that. But if they don't want to go through Plaid, they can, if they click connect a new account, they can actually back up out of Plaid to put an account routing number. I've had my own borrowers where they have small credit unions that are not on Plaid's list. So keep in mind, this is maybe a conversation with them where I've seen that before where they go, I don't have an account with Plaid. This won't work for me. And then they just leave, right? So we see drop off for that. So a lot of this is, again, just monitoring, seeing their progress, making sure they're going through the different stages. And then one other thing I do want to talk about here is this page in particular. This is the one that I think trips up a lot of people. So we're going to do a hard credit pull, and we'll do actual full appraisal paid for by figure if the loan amount's over 400,000. If it's 400,000 or less, we're just going to do an AVM, which we're doing here. But they will have the ability to modify their final offer, right? So we all know this. They hit save and continue. Great. What's going to happen though is our system is going to go ahead and it's going to try to detect discrepancies on the back end. Meaning, what it's going to do is it's going to see if the name matches ownership, if the bank account name matches, there's a whole laundry list of things. And if for any reason it detects discrepancies, it'll say, hey, we do not want to generate any of the closing docs, HELOC agreement, all that before we clear this all up. So what'll happen is it'll actually stop the application when they hit save and continue. It'll bring them back to their dashboard, and then they're going to have to wait until one of our team members in operations reviews it. And so what'll happen there is usually it takes 48 hours to process. Now, the borrower can call or chat in to expedite this, but what you all see, and I'm going to jump over here really quick, is you will see on the details page, it's going to say note signing in this milestone, and it will be yellow. And I get a lot of questions on this because people will say like, hey, my borrower's a note signing. Why can't they proceed? Well, it's actually because that is a high level milestone. And really what's happening there is there's a lot in between, right? As we saw, they'll go through, they'll select their final offer, they hit save and continue, right? But they haven't actually got to note signing. So what you should do is you should actually use the status bubbles at the top to see what it is. You should see if there's any conditions. It'll let you know if there are any, right? But if they are stuck, you should go in, look at the application status, see if the borrower needs to do anything. And you can also take a look at the notes on the file itself. And for a lot of you now, there's going to be an AI chatbot built into the details of the file. It'll be on the left-hand side, say AI assistant. It's all integrated with my resource center as well as the backend data. So you can ask the AI chatbot, hey, what's going on with this file? And it'll let you know. So a lot of times you'll get a notification, right? Email, SMS communication now, where it'll be like, hey, the borrower selected their final offer. That was 3 days ago. And you're looking, you're like, why haven't they continued? Well, it's probably because the application's paused. We need to review something. So your borrower can call or chat in, or you all can absolutely contact our customer ops center to say, hey, we want to expedite this. We want to get this done. What's happening with this file? So you either have the AI bot if you guys want to ask questions, or you can call in and talk to a real person to basically see if we can push the app through as quickly as we can. But just keep in mind, if you've seen this note signing milestone, number 9, it's yellow, look over everything. A lot of times they're not in note signing, they're actually set right before it, before we generate those docs. And then once they do note signing, they'll add any additional signers if there are any. And then we have notary preparation, which again, our team has to look over everything because they have to bundle the docs, property legal description, they approve everything, and then we can get them to notary. So really 2 places where it could definitely be stopped. And again, I'd be checking, my notifications, I'd be checking my files, and then seeing what you can do to kind of speed up the process. So can be a 15 or 20-minute app. A lot of times though, again, on average, about 9 days for everything to complete. So I would just set the expectation with the borrower. And if they ever do see a screen that's saying it's being reviewed, I tell them just chat in real quick. have them talk to a real person and say, hey, what can we do to get this done if, they're really wanting to be engaged and get the application done as soon as possible. All right, that's about all I got for today on this one here. Gentlemen, anything you want to add before we go to Q&A?
I think one thing that's important to notice is if your customer's stagnant or having issues or having a problem or stuck, the chatbots, the borrower facing chat is the fastest, easiest way to get a resolution. Have them use the chat, ask to speak to an agent. 1 to 2 minutes, they're connected to a live agent. That agent can walk them through that process. It's the fastest, quickest way to have a resolution to anything they're having difficulties with. So that resource is there. Have them use it. You're going to get a faster response than any of us could possibly respond to an email that we're working in order we've received. So just an FYI, fastest way to solve your client's problems.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. That's always going to be the fastest way. And the other is, try to your best to understand what this process looks like through the borrower. So then you can set them up for success at the jump. So when first do an inquiry or a lead comes in, if you're one of our white label partners where the borrower sends the lead in, reach out and send an email up front, and you can have it saved in a Word document or something like that, and just let them know, like, hey, you're going to do this. You're going to do, you're going to have to have your social security number ready. Obviously, most people have that, but you're going to have to actually apply for a hard credit pull at some point. You're going to have to link your bank accounts. You're going to have, a deed if it's like in a trust or something like that. There's just like a bunch of things that the borrower needs to know upfront. And the more they understand and have things ready to go from the beginning, the smoother this process is going to be.
I couldn't agree more, Mike. Most of us are used to sending a needs list right away when someone applies, right? We have a pre-filled email that we may change a few things. We saved as a signature. We're sending a needs list, right? Gathering our standard docs. To Mike's point, prior to me joining at Figure, I was at an IMB as director of sales, and we rolled this out. And one of the things that we saw great success is we put together a customer preparation list that we would send out every time someone applied with us through Figure. Like to Mike's points, it just kind of said step one's this, two, three, four, five. We took the information off the resource center. We put it into a little bit more customer facing verbiage that made it a little easy to understand. And we sent it out every time. And we had a lot less fallout. There was easier to be more prepared. And we also used it internally as a reference if we needed to speak about the process when we're talking to clients, going out, talking to realtors, other partners about how our process works. This is how it goes. These are the steps. This is why it's so quick. So to Mike's point, absolutely. I would tie something up. I can tell you firsthand experience, it actually works.
That's something as well. We're doing a big overhaul of the resource center, so you're going to see a much better UI and design. I can't talk too much about it right now, but that's definitely something that we want to start putting in there at some point is needs lists, as well as a bunch of actual sales videos and documents for y'all. So look for those in the future. I got to start at the bare basics, and as we grow, I want to start getting that stuff in there. So not immediately today, but I'll get you all definitely a lot in there for that. All right, gentlemen, what kind of questions we got in the chat here? What do we want to answer?
Yeah.
Hopefully
So
all
the
of
first,
them. No, go
yeah,
ahead. Go ahead.
all right. First one is, can you shoot a link that walks through the expenses that will impact a borrower on a Figure HELOC?
Um, Carl, this is a good question. Honestly, I can send in like a link for like the walkthrough. Keep in mind, the only real big thing there that it affects a borrower is going to be the origination fee. That's a rate buy down, and that's going to be on every file, except for I believe there's one or two states where there's an O fee cap of 0%. But realistically, we do not have many other fees. We have a manual notary fee if their county can't support e-recording. It's usually about $150 to $350, but it's rolled into the total, right? None of the fees are paid out of pocket. And then there's a couple states that may charge like government fees. Those are also rolled into the total. Outside of that, it's usually just the origination fee and that's it. So I
Just
can always like send out a link to a demo, and that kind of thing. But keep in mind here, it's fully digital. There's not a lot for us to charge on, so we really do not have a lot of fees that you're used to.
just to go in a different route that he may be talking about. If you're talking about expenses that affect the ability to qualify, it's basically going to be anything that's going to report on their credit report, right? Any of the debts that are remaining post closing, any of those types of expenses will also have an effect on the customer's DTI. So you have the ability to pay those off as well if they're remaining. So if you get an offer up front without any debts, just understand that any existing expenses are already factored into their DTI. They're able to receive this amount with everything remaining the same. So just in case they're talking about a different type of expense.
Oh, that's actually really good, Lando. I didn't think about it that way. Yeah, if we're talking like actual expenses and such, to Lando's point, right, we're going to do a soft credit pull and we're going to be doing some like monthly debt calculations. Just run the inquiry, and then what you can see in the actual details of the inquiry is the DTI calculation. But you're not going to see like an actual full credit report or anything. Just run the inquiry. You can see what their offers are.
Good two for one question there. All right. So I have a borrower that froze her address from public records. It's been released since July. They keep telling me a ticket was created. Every time I call in, I get a different answer. I was told on Monday that she has to wait until the end of October.
What an interesting situation.
Yeah.
We can take this offline. I can take a look at it if you email salessuccess@figure.com. I will say on a lot of that, because we go through third parties, we may have to wait a little bit for updated records. The big thing there, I've seen that before with sheriffs, especially,
Mhm.
is when they hide the address, we actually do have to wait quite a bit of time before they can actually pull like public records. They have updated information, especially since we do a required AVM and the like, especially, pulling property data. I'm not going to use the word especially over and over. Um, but feel free. I can always triple check, but if that's what Ops is saying, we're going to go by, what they say as well.
All right. I have a borrower that has signed. His wife is out of the country. She wants to use a notary at the U.S. Embassy. I was told this is not allowed. I was told she cannot donate the property either. Please advise.
Yeah, apologies on that, Cleon. More or less, we can't do out of country signings like that. They would have to sign in person when it comes to it here in the United States because we go through a third party. It's kind of like an Uber of notaries. But more or less, it has to be a location here in the United States for the signing itself. Also, no donations for any title changes. There's a 90-day seasoning requirement. So if it was something where it's like, okay, we're gonna, change the title and put it sole, under the husband, there we would have to do a whole new file, 90-day seasoning, all of that. So it just sounds like in this kind of situation, you may just have to wait until they come back over to the United States, or if they're there, maybe just a title change and waiting a while. Couple different options, but at the end of the day, we can't do signings at embassies at this time.
All right. Hey, team, I have two loans in Texas that ran into expiration issues during the final stages. One was canceled on the last day of rescission because the loan had expired on the 14th, even though the rescission didn't end until the 15th. The funds were never dispersed. The second loan was canceled during notary prep because the loan expired before we were able to schedule the notary. Is there a process to extend loans that are approaching expiration when they're already in notary, rescission, or the funding stage? Trying to understand how we can prevent this from happening in future files.
I want to take a look at that one, Bryant. Here's the reason. So we can't extend the expiration for current active files. And here's the thing with Texas, it is such a beast, and as you know. So for Texas, for hard credit, we have that actually extended already for 45 days compared to the 29 days for a regular state. So for something like notary prep, realistically, what we want to do is we want to be having you or the borrower contact ops to try to get things more or less expedited. But we have that 12-day cooling off period in notary. So a lot of the times it's waiting for that. And then we need an attorney to review the docs to then get them over to notary, right? So in saying all that, like let's say it's a notary prep, we can't extend the expiration. But I would say on the flip side, I would almost say contact us, see if we can get that expedited and pushed up the queue. But in saying all that, I don't think we should expire for something in rescission. I would be interested to take a look at that one. That's not the way it should function. So do me a favor, Brian, send over that file in particular, that one that expired in rescission. Send it to salessuccess@figure.com and I'll take that one offline.
Biggest drop-off points are during the payoff pending and the trust review stages. I often have to call in repeatedly for updates, and there doesn't seem to be a clear turnaround time when these reviews are being completed. This can lead to borrowers becoming frustrated and ultimately going elsewhere. Is there a way to get a clearer turnaround times or more visibility into the status of payoff pending and trust review so we can set better expectations for our borrowers?
Yeah, this is something that our head of ops, his name is Shawan. He is such an awesome guy. He's doing a lot right now to really make better visibility, but he's also really expanding like the teams there, where we actually have a new hire class currently going through 60 people, and they're also hiring even a lot more. So a lot of these turnaround times should be a lot better here coming soon. When it comes to visibility, again, we're doing some big overhauls for Lead Portal. So, not now. I would definitely say look for like the next couple quarters. When it comes down to it, I would say at the end of the day, just call in. If you're Figure Wholesale, you can call into the MLO direct line. If you are a correspondent partner, when you call in, hit 3 on the extension. It'll get you to a direct priority route to a specialist team that works with LOs and LOAs. But it's saying, what is happening here? Can we, get something done to expedite this? For payoff pending, that has to go through our third party, right? That's going to be going through, I believe, Stewart. So a lot of the times we can't necessarily rush that. But for trusts, that goes to also a specialist team here internally where we review that certificate of trust. We wait till the file's near the end. We need to review that. That does have a little bit of lead time, but that's usually only a couple days, usually about 48 hours processing time. So if you do have something like a trust, make sure the documents, that certificate of trust the borrower has, they upload. But once we get to that point, let our team know. And that's something where we can process through. The nice thing is we have that new AI chat bot. And so you can always ask that real quick, what's going on in the file. It can give you updates and then reach out to our team. And we're always happy to help.
I mean,
Again,
Alex, I know it's
free on
not
the
here yet,
extension.
but to that point, I think we're also we have some things that'll be rolling out hopefully soon that will help expedite the payoff process.
Yes, 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 yes.
So there will be some big changes to that that'll definitely help decrease the lag it takes getting those items to come in from our third parties. So more to come on that.
Yeah. I would say stay tuned to every webinar.
All right. Are we as the advisor able to provide or upload the income and or assets to the portal, or does it have to be done by the client?
Has to be done by the client. You can always like email pay stubs. Realistically, though, it has to be the client. They're going to have the ability, right, to digitally link their online accounts. They can upload pay stubs on there. And then the client can always contact our ops team if they need to upload like award letters and things of that nature. Keep in mind, it's a borrower-driven application experience, right? They're going to digitally need to be linking those accounts for the most part.
All right. Chat feature has been not working for my borrowers. It gives them an error to try again later. They have to keep hitting the chat with us multiple times before they can connect.
I would, that's interesting. I haven't heard that before, Bryant. I would check to see like what type of browser they're on, what type of device. If you keep having those errors, send an email to our ops team and let them know, and they can kind of take a look because they're the ones that run those type of systems, so they can take a look from an actual like engineering standpoint.
All right.
Also, I want to say something completely aside. This is for you all in the webinar here, kind of more to Lando's point. When we're talking about uploading things for the borrower, we actually have some things in the works. I can't really talk about it, but we have a lot coming in. I keep thinking about the things we're working on. So just stay tuned. A lot of the questions you guys are asking, we're working on it. That's what I'll say.
All right. Let's see. How can I get a new password? I can't log on and the reset password doesn't work because they don't get the email.
Um, Check internally so your admins control your user profiles. So if you're having difficulties, I again reach out internally. Sometimes I've seen it where you're just not added, and so your admins need to add you as a profile. Other times there may be like difficult situations. If your admins are struggling, they can reach out to our support team, or if you're a correspondent partner, the admins can reach out to your account manager. So kind of different avenues. I would just start internally because just for compliance, we don't manage your users. Here at Sales Success, that would be your admins managing that in Lead Portal.
I would also say make sure that you're using the URL figure.com/lead portal. If you're not using that URL, you're not going to get the emails back. That's what you should be using to try to change your password.
Yeah, put that in the chat there.
100%. What service do we use at the home to see if the home is listed for sale?
I'm sorry, say that one again.
What service do we use to see with the LOUs to see if the home is actually listed for sale?
That would be on YouTube, guys, mostly. There's something where we're going to check on MLS on the back end when we do that actual data pull when it comes down to it, whether or not you guys check it, through any third party. That's all up to you guys, but it'll let you know if you run an inquiry or something, whether or not it's listed.
I would just ask the question of it, right? If you've had the conversation with your client, you probably know what the nature of their needs are or what they're trying to accomplish. So if any of those questions lead to them asking a follow-up question, to then just ask, hey, is it for sale?
And you're going to want to know because if it is for sale or if they're planning on putting it for sale in the near future, you want to know that because if they pay the loan off in the first 16 weeks, we're going to claw back compensation. There's no penalty to the borrower to do it, to pay it off, but we are going to claw LO comp back. So it's an important question to ask. I'd say probably right along with like how much money do you make is next is going to be is this property, are you going to list this house? Like, what are you using the funds for? I mean, we don't typically care, but it's a good conversation to have just to find out. You can ask follow-up questions from there, but if it's for things like, home improvement or maybe like buying other properties, A, what are they, are you fixing up the house to sell it? And B, if, buying other properties, like, are you buying a new primary or what? So it's an important question to ask for sure. Boom, this leads right into this one. Actually, it's not. Never mind. Quick reminder, is the payment fully amortized from day one, or is it interest only during the draw period?
We
Is
do principal plus interest payments. We do not do interest only ever, and it's fully amortized always, required 100% draw.
right. Is there a way to check what account is set up for funding without calling?
I don't believe so in Lead Portal. I'll take that feedback to the engineering team. You can ask the AI chatbot and see what it says to you. That's my
If
advice.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Alex. I'm just like thinking out loud. We do put,
Now think out loud. I like it.
yeah. There is a document in there that I think it's more for it's for the plat report though. I don't think it's going to have their disbursement
No,
accounts.
yeah, because disbursement's separate, and we have that in the
Yeah.
back end. And thing that the disbursement is masked, so even then, like we really don't see too much other than like the last four a lot of the times, and even that can be masked. So I
hmm
usually say like start by asking the AI chatbot, see what it says. But definitely you can contact support and we can let you know.
When someone has to cancel an app and reapply due to a mistake, why doesn't the new loan show it in my dashboard? How can I get it added?
It depends on your partnership level. So for figure wholesale, like for any wholesale partner, I take that back. Any wholesale partner, the loan officer has to redo a whole new inquiry, right, for that to be in your pipeline. For our correspondent partners, right, you're private labeled, it's all white labeled, all that such. When it comes down to it, the borrower is going to have a reapply button. And so that's something where they can, go ahead, they can reapply directly, all of that. And if they go ahead and reapply, that could not show up in your pipeline, but your admins, they can reassign it to you. So it depends on the flow. You could always do an inquiry again. So, like, say the borrower cancels, you can do an inquiry or you can send them your direct referral link. But it could come up to a situation, Darren, depending on your partnership level. It could be canceled, borrower reapplies. It could not just be in your pipeline, but again, your admins can just reassign it right back to you.
When will there be a chat feature for the LOs?
We're working on it. We just need to, we're hiring people. Let's put it that way, right? We're hiring people. We're getting more and more. So it's starting with an AI chatbot. We'll see where it goes from there. Let's put it that way.
All right, I'm having a hard time finding critical dates to fill out on lending pad. Only dates I see on loan details are signing date and rescission end date. Where can I get critical dates for lending pad to process payroll?
So you're going to see different dates within like the actual documentation itself. So if you go into the documents, you'll get signed copies of everything. So you'll get copies of like the RTC form, you'll get copies of like the actual HELOC agreement. So you'll see things like funding and all that. And then for your admins, they're actually going to get a pipeline report for a lot of like other partnerships, funding reports, and things of that nature. So then you can see all of that at a higher level. So it just depends on your permission level and your access. But realistically, Lead Portal will give you the generalized and the details. You can look at the actual documents for like a higher breakdown is probably where I look for a lot of that. If you're looking for something specific, let us know and we can kind of take a look at a partnership level.
All right, more and more, we have been prompted to find a deed from the county that can cause frustration with borrowers. Most of them have done mortgages in the past and never been asked to look for a deed. This can delay the loan days. Is there any other document we can provide if a deed can take a week or two to obtain?
Here's the reason we're asking for it. It's a really good question. I've been doing this 6 years. I know it causes frustrations with the bar, especially in like Georgia and a couple other areas. Here's the reason we're asking for it. And I mentioned this literally as a sentence earlier. We need the property legal description at the end in order to do the recording. So, as a part of their notary preparation step, along with making sure everything's accurate and we get that approval to get them to notary, our ops team needs to get a property legal description. And so, our automated system, number one, is going to try to pull that. And if it can't do that, then we're going to get someone in ops to look for it online. And we pay a lot of money for all sorts of online websites with the different counties, right? With the different search functionalities to try to pull that to do everything we can to not involve the borrower. And I cannot stress to you how much money we pay to not involve the borrowers in trying to get a deed. Because to your point, it's frustrating. It may, have difficulties. But with certain counties, they don't have them online readily available, and it could, come down to it. So when we're asking about it, a lot of the times on, different like finance documents, like mortgage documents, things like that, they could be shortened versions of the PLD, or it's just something we're not going to accept because they're not actually the actual transfer document. So if we ever do request a deed, keep in mind, unless it comes down to some sort of ownership discrepancy or, something of that nature, there are times we need it for actual ownership. Most of the time when we need a deed, in my opinion, we're just looking for that property legal description. So, you can always contact our ops team, have a discussion about, what conditions there are, what kind of documents we're looking for, but let the borrower know sometimes we simply need them to go to the county to get a copy of their deed if they don't have it on hand because we need that property legal description. But we will do everything in our power. I promise you, I've done it myself to not involve the borrower to make it as seamless as possible for them.
All right. Can you show how to exclude debts to be paid off in the loan to have their DTI drop?
Oh yeah. It depends on the situation, honestly. Because there's two scenarios. There's the scenario I'll show you here where they get offers, right? So if they get offers, what can happen is if, we go down here, you'll have this banner and you'll only have that banner once you select a term. So keep that in mind. I see LOs miss that. So if you select that banner, then what's going to happen here is you're going to have the ability to then select debts, and it's only going to show you debts we can pay off, right? So if you make those selections, then it'll rerun that underwriting in accordance, and then potentially they can get, more money, different offers, that kind of thing. So that's if they get offers. The second option is if they do not get offers, let's say their DTI is too high. And that to me is like the realistic situation, right? Their DTI is like 60, 70%. They're looking to pay off, credit cards, personal loans, things of that nature. It will bring you to an asset depletion screen. And so on that screen, it will present to you any debts they do have to pay off. So I'll show it to you right now. Here we go. This is what it looks like. So you run an inquiry. It could say like, hey, their income's not sufficient. And then here is where you can restate their income. You can state assets if they have any for asset depletion. But if you scroll down, then it will only show qualifying debts, meaning only debts at a lower DTI. A note to that, credit cards stay open. And so we have some stricter restrictions when it comes to like the FICO score needs to be 680 and a few other things. You'll see that in the actual resource center. There's a doc for it. As well as, again, it's only showing qualifying debts. So only what's available on here. And then if you don't see the screen at all, it just means that they didn't have the ability to do things like direct debt payoff or say asset depletion to get them over the finish line. So run the inquiry, see what options are available, and it'll let you know if we do have the ability because we're going to try everything to get them offers.
I had a borrower who wants 55,000, but the lowest amount she was given was 95,000. Doesn't allow them to go any lower.
It could depend on a couple key factors there. It really kind of comes down to like lending limits for like certain fees, certain state requirements, as well as like what we're willing to offer when it comes down to like actual some CLTV requirements within like their FICO range. So if you're ever curious, Bryant, you can always send that over to like the ops team and they can give you more information on like why those were limited in the way that they were.
Could also be depending on if you are a private label, your company may have set their own minimum loan amount that they're
That's true
willing to.
too. That's true.
Yeah, so it could be a company setting that they've decided that's the lowest they're going to offer on these things. So good question to ask your administration.
What happens when they go to notary?
Two things happen here. If they go to eNotary, it's an electronic video call. It takes like 5 minutes. I used to do it all the time as a notary at the state of Nevada, right? They just need their ID ready and the notary will walk them through the script. Just keep in mind for additional signers, they'll get an email on how to connect to their own notary session because they have to be separate. So if you have a husband and wife, or whatever it may be, they can't sit down and do it together. They have to do completely different sessions. If it's manual notary, they have to schedule a date, time, and location. That's 24 hours in advance. And usually it's at their house, but we go through a third party that acts as, again, like an Uber of notaries. So you'll know what kind of notary it is. If you see a notary fee, it's a manual notary. If there's no notary fee, it's e-notary. Quite simple.
All right. How long does it take Figure to send out funds for a file? I think this is actually compensation for a file. I
Mhm.
closed a HELOC a couple weeks ago, and my broker has not received funds yet. Also, how do I see what I've earned for originating a loan?
That's going to be on more of the admin level, and that's something that we can definitely help out with when it comes to compensation questions for your like admins with the brokerage, especially in the wholesale level. So the way we pay it out in Figure Wholesale is we pay it Wednesday nights to the brokerage as a lump sum for the previous week's funding activity. So if you're an admin, in that brokerage, reach out to us, salessuccess@figure.com. We can always break it down and have a discussion. But keep in mind, we pay it to your brokerage as a lump sum. It's up to them how they pay you, how they break it up. But yeah, absolutely. If you're like an admin and you're saying, hey, we want to take a look at this, reach out to us. We're pretty good, especially Scott. He's pretty good at it.
I guess so.
All right. Do you have a Spanish-speaking notary? Do we have a Spanish-speaking notary?
We do not for e-notary. So e-notary is English only, but manual notary we can do pretty much any language that our third party can find a notary for. So if you know that they need a Spanish notary, please contact our ops team, let them know. And when the borrower goes to schedule, we're just going to have to manually contact our third party to let them know to accommodate. And then that happens all the time with Spanish speaking notaries is just simply, they'll send one out manually and we can reroute e-notary to manual if that's the case. Totally fine. Just keep in mind both the application and e-notary are English only for compliance reasons.
All right. And I love this one. Is there any penalty if a client pays a large amount early? So if they had $95,000 loan, person needs 55, they take the 95 and pay down 40 in the next 60 days.
There are no prepayment penalties at all for the borrower. And in fact, if they make a single large payment of 10% or more in principal, it'll automatically recast. So your borrower has a lot of flexibility when it comes down to it. However, in saying that, check for any internal EPO policies. If your company or your through figure wholesale has EPO, that's if they pay 90% or more within 16 weeks, 4 months. That's their standard EPO policy. So just check internally with your leadership on how that's going to work for you when it comes to compensation. But for your borrower, again, no prepayment penalties. So for this question in particular, right, they take out 95,000, they only need 55,000. Okay, they turn around and pay 40,000 back. That's fine. It's going to go ahead and recast because they're paying more than 10% in principal is one large payment. Everyone's happy. I think that's all the questions then,
That wraps it
folks.
up.
That wraps it up. Thank you very much, gentlemen. So, everyone, I'll send out a link to the YouTube. I'll put the recording on there. I'm going to send an email with a bunch of information. I'll send out a link to the demo and a few more little fun little tidbits. But with that, thank you all for joining us. We're going to be back in a couple weeks. I'm going to be kind of wrangling up probably a special guest. But outside of that, again, we're going to be releasing new features, SMS notifications, going out and becoming live with more and more partners over this coming week. And on top of that, again, we will be releasing that pre-fill ID feature here soon. So look forward to it. We'll be making new announcements, new things on our webinar. And as always, you can reach us at salessuccess@figure.com. But with that, thank you all very much. And thank you all, gentlemen. Everyone have a great day.